Hello, and welcome to my channel. Try this as a series breaking down a certain game or playstyle of a game. Today we're going to be talking Commander and breaking down Henzie, Toolbox, Torre. This video is broken down into chapters which you can find in the description or in the timeline. I'll be briefly covering Toolbox himself, then break down some mana base and card draw strategies. I'll talk about our win conditions and how we're going to get there, and other synergistic cards in the deck. I'll cover other synergy cards I cut from my example list and why they didn't fit, but they might fit yours. Then I'll be moving on to some budget suggestions for the deck, as my example list isn't budget friendly. I'll go over most but not all the cards in my example list, so if you'd like to see the rest, the deck list is in the description below. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps other viewers discover the video and the channel. With that said, let's dive in. Toolbox is a 3/3 Devil Rogue that costs black, red, green. He has each creature spell you cast with mana value 4 or greater has Blitz, and the Blitz cost is equal to its mana cost. Also, Blitz cost you pay costs 1 less for each time you cast your commander from the command zone this game. For a reminder, Blitz is an ability introduced in New Capenna that reads, if you cast a spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Toolbox is a great candidate for a Reanimator style deck. The Blitz ability can bring out some real aggressive threats, putting pressure on our opponents while also ensuring we have plenty of gas. He's a pretty flexible commander if you're focusing on creatures. Having a blanket cost reduction on our more expensive creatures and the ability to draw cards to replace them when they die is a solid utility package. I think the sweet spot for most creatures is mana value 4 to 6 in this deck. Since we must cast Toolbox from the command zone to increase his cost reduction, we're probably not going to get the insane levels of value that Animar can achieve. I'm a big fan of commanders that encourage the player to cast them multiple times, and Toolbox is one of the better versions of scaling with cast. I think it's cool when commanders provide you more value or even incentives to cast them multiple times from the command zone. We're going to win by recurring our creatures repetitively for value, either to hit our opponents or to control the board by destroying problem permanents. Cards like Scourge of the Throne, Giant Adaphage, and Atali Primal Storm are good examples. They are all heavy hitters that provide us additional value in some way. These creatures, among others, we'd want to blitz out for some aggressive damage, get the card draw, then revive later for more value. We're running a few cards that combo in this deck, but only one that wins us the game outright. I normally try to avoid combos in decks if possible. I don't think combos are bad by any means, but for me, having a reliable combo sometimes makes the deck feel samey and loses its luster doing the same plays over and over again. Even with my Jolene deck, the combo there was put in by accident originally, and I found it to be a good backup plan for the deck. However, in this list I felt that it was needed. In testing and tuning Toolbox, I found that it would control the board pretty well with the removal ETB effects. It always had a solid board presence as I could recur creatures reliably. However, the creatures we grabbed weren't really providing enough threat to finish off our opponents. Gary and Kakusha were probably the two most reliable ways to threaten our opponent's life, along with Giant Adaphage. So to help Toolbox close out the game, I added Murderous Redcap to combo with Mikaeus or Rhythm of the Wild. So how does the combo work? First, you need a sack outlet, and we're running Viscera Seer and Ashnod Altar in this deck. Second, you need something that can give a +1/+1 counters on creatures. Rhythm of the Wild gives us the option to, and Mikaeus lets us use the Undying instead of Persist when needed. Finally, we need some Persist creatures. Puppeteer Click, Woodfall Primus, and Murderous Redcap all work with this combo. Puppeteer Click can recur all of our opponent's graveyards for whatever value they have. Woodfall Primus is actually a little mean as it can destroy everyone's mana base, so maybe hold back on that. Murderous Redcap can just end the game with his ETB effect. As always, we need to build up our mana base to get this deck going. I have my 3 auto-includes in Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Thematic Compass. These artifacts have always been reliable for me, with Thematic Compass making sure we hit our land drops in early game in a pinch, and flipping into a strictly better Maze of Ith. Next we have the usual ramp spells in Cultivate and Nature's Lore, which helps us ramp in the Skyshroud Claim and Tempt with Discovery. These are my go-to green ramp spells. Cultivate is just a solid card. Nature's Lore can grab our dual lands or our 1 tri-land just like Skyshroud Claim. Also, Tempt with Discovery is just always a fun card to spark conversation and interaction with your opponents. We're also running Birds of Paradise, Ignorable Hierarch, and Secura Tribe Elder as our low mana value ramp creatures. We have Ashnod's Altar and Solemn Simulacrum. The Altar can sacrifice our Blitz creatures to draw a card and provide some mana. The sad robot synergizes with Toolbox as we can actually blitz it out to ramp and then get Solemn's draw trigger on the same turn. I'm running one additional cost reduction in Cloud Key to help reduce the blitz even more. Finally, we also have Sword of Hearth and Home to give us some more basics. The sword also lets us keep our blitzed creatures. Say we don't want the Scourge of the Throne to die. We can use the sword's flicker ability on the Blitz Dragon to return it to the battlefield untapped and without the Blitz sacrifice clause. Card draw is something this deck shouldn't struggle with at all. The Blitz ability Toolbox can give our creatures will always ensure they replace themselves when they die. We can give 22 of the 29 creatures in our deck Blitz if we want to. However, we can always include some utility to help draw out even more cards. Guardian Project, Greater Good, and Skull Clamp are some solid cards in this deck. With 30 creatures including our commander, we should get plenty of value with Guardian Project. Greater Good lets us sacrifice our Blitz creatures for even more value. With all of them being 4 CMC or higher, most will likely have higher power to draw more than we need to discard in addition to the bonus card we get from the Blitz ability. Similarly, Skull Clamp can be cheaply attached to any of the Blitz creatures to provide a small power buff and also get us more cards when they die. Beast Whisperer, Grim Haruspex, and Korvald will also get us some more card draw. Since we need to sacrifice the Blitz creatures on end step, this plays really well into Korvald. He'll draw us extra cards and turn into a huge flying threat for our opponents. I also included Myth Unbound in this deck. This is more to reduce the commander tax, but also gives us some card draw throughout the game. Mikaeus is a notoriously powerful card and synergizes so well with the Blitz ability, it felt like a no-brainer to run in this list. We only have 4 humans in this list, so blitzing out most of our creatures will let us attack, then draw cards and get them back onto the battlefield untapped. We're running some similar effects with Journey to Eternity, Feigned Death, and Malakir Rebirth. They all allow us to get our creatures back after we sacrifice them with the Blitz ability. The Journey to Eternity flips into a land that can reanimate anything in our graveyard at instant speed. We can also get our Blitz creatures back with Cauldron of Souls. If we've ramped enough to get multiple Blitz creatures onto the field, then this can recur all of them, which is a nice bonus. We can also reanimate a creature with Phyrexian Delver. Also, Feldon doesn't technically reanimate something, but he can make some token copies of the larger threats already in our graveyard. We can control the board with cards like Meteor Golem, Noxious Gearhulk, and Ravenous Chupacabra. As creatures, we can also recur them with our reanimation effects previously mentioned. Dictative Erebos will force our opponents to sacrifice their creatures when our Blitz creatures die to keep ahead on the board. Gary and Kakusho can cut into our opponent's life totals easily. They can both heal us while hurting all of our opponents at once. Gary's effectiveness can vary a bit since we're splitting devotion between 3 colors. However, I think it's still worth running with all the recursion we have. Wormcoil Engine and Giant Adaphage are both large threats to swing out with. The Wormcoil will replace itself with the 2 tokens, while the Adaphage will likely make a copy of itself to replace the one about to die. Birthing Pod and Protean Hulk will let us tutor for some other creatures in our deck. Birthing Pod is nice because if our creatures are going to die anyway, we might as well get some more value from them, and this lets us trade an essentially dead creature for something else that'll stick around. Blitzing in the Protean Hulk ensures that we can get the death trigger. This allows us to tutor for almost any creature in our list, including Murderous Redcap and Viscera Seer, which are 2 cards we need for our infinite combo. In the cutting room floor, I discussed some cards around or over $10 that don't fit in the budget section, and I also cut from the deck for various reasons. Though they didn't have a home in my list, they might find a home in yours. Starting off, we have the Great Henge. This is a powerhouse artifact to put in most heavy creature lists in green. You already have quite a bit of card draw, and the extra Henge provides isn't really needed. Also, the +1/+1 counters aren't a May trigger on this card. This actually works against the value Mikaeus provides us. Normally, I don't worry too much about 2 cards negatively interacting with each other, as the odds of getting both of them in the hand, let alone on the field, is pretty low. However, in this case, Mikaeus provides so much value and is part of our combo that we'll likely tutor for him at some point in the game, or always want him on the field if we draw into him. For this reason, I ended up cutting the Great Henge from my list. Next up, we have Pitiless Plunderer. I really love this card and it plays so well into Aristocrat strategy, but I didn't feel like I needed the additional ramp in this deck. There are a few creatures we'd rather not blitz out, and adding more actually hurts our card draw potential since blitz is a big part of our card advantage. For me, it made more sense to replace this with another 4 CMC or higher creature that I'd rather blitz out. Terror of the Peaks is a scary dragon that synergizes with large creatures we'd be blitzing out throughout the game. It makes sense to run it for that reason as another damage source to hit our opponents with. However, I cut it for the same reason as the Plunderer. We need things to blitz out for card draw, and our deck could stall out otherwise. I considered running this when I was having troubles finishing games with Toolbox early on, but I felt the Murderous Redcap combo fit the theme of the deck better and made more sense. Rise of the Dark Realms will allow us to get all creatures on the battlefield from everyone's graveyards. I seriously considered running this as we'd likely have plenty of creatures in our own graveyard and run enough removal to have put quite a few creatures into our opponent's graveyards also. I cut it because Homeward Path is a pretty popular card to run in my pod, which totally negates this card for the most part. Also, I run plenty of Recursion that already gets most of our creatures out, and it didn't seem worth it to me just to get it for our opponent's creatures. Finally, we have Reanimate. This could easily replace Feigned Death or Malakir Rebirth, and definitely makes sense in this list. I felt the advantage the two instant speed cards had over this would be being able to get the Blitz creatures back again on the same turn, letting them swing on the following turn. Reanimate being a sorcery speed card, and Blitz making us sacrifice the creatures on end step go against each other, making things less efficient. However, Reanimate being able to pull things from any graveyard and also getting creatures we lost early in the game makes it a nice utility card worth mentioning. Starting off with the budget suggestions, we have Butcher or Malakir to replace Dictative Erebos. Both offer the same effect, and the Butcher we can blitz out if we want to and reanimate later if we need to. Ornithopter of Paradise is a great budget version of Birds of Paradise. Thrang Tusk, Terastodon, Sea Guide Ash, and Inferno Titan are some budget creatures worth mentioning that we can blitz out. Thrang Tusk replaces itself when it dies while also gaining us some life. Terastodon can blow up to 3 threats on the board. Seed Guide Ash can ramp us, and I'd honestly suggest running it if you feel like you need more ramp in your list. Infernal Titan can do 6 damage if we blitz it out, not including any damage it deals in combat. Being able to split the damage up is also really useful, making it a flexible removal creature or providing some great bonus damage to an opponent. For some added recursion, you could run Outer Zen of Kozilek, Animate Dead, or Kaya's Ghost Form. Kaya's Ghost Form is nice because we can cast it on the Blitz creature to reanimate it right away after it sacrifices on end step. I ended up cutting it in favor of Feigned Death and Malakir Rebirth because they were instant speed cards. The Ghost Form could get removed by an opponent, and since all 3 cards are budget and 1 black mana to cast, I decided to stick with the 2 instant speed versions. That being said, the Ghost Form is a cheap, reliable card that synergizes well with Toolbox. Fling, Village Rites, and Disciple of Bolas let us sacrifice the already going to die Blitz creatures for more value. We can even blitz out the Disciple of Bolas for additional card draw on top of its original effect. I imagine it'd be worth it to blitz it in the second main phase to try and get the damage in with whatever large creature you've already blitzed in. To wrap it all up, we have Chainer Nightmare Adept. I used to run it in this list for added value. Chainer lets us recast anything we've previously blitzed in, and we can even blitz it in from the graveyard if we want to. I cut it because the recursion I run is often cheaper than casting these larger creatures from the graveyard. Also, like Pitiless Plunderer and Terror of the Peaks, this is one more creature we wouldn't want to blitz in, watering down our card draw potential. Though it is worth noting that you can blitz things out of the graveyard to make up for that. If you're looking for budget lands or mana rocks for your deck, I would recommend checking out managathering.com. Unfortunately, it doesn't break down the prices for you, but it has a comprehensive list of all lands and rocks released for Magic the Gathering. To check out the prices, just click on any image of any card on the page and it will take you to a TCG player listing of the card. It is an extremely helpful resource to find utility or budget alternatives for expensive dual and fetch lands. In building mana bases for your deck, it is always worth checking out. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos. Comment below on cards you think synergize well with this commander, and if you have any suggestions for commanders to build in the future. Thank you so much for watching, good luck, and have fun.